Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what part of the day you're watching this episode. My name is Patrick Henz, and I welcome you to another episode of Data Driven Formula One, where we discuss Formula One starting from the pre-1950s, or better said, end of 40s, where we had the first races based on Formula One regulations. And from there, we are slowly coming to the actual days. Today, I have a topic, I hope you like it. We speak about Frank Williams, founder, of course, of Williams Racing, but we will speak a little bit before that time when he entered Formula One, where he worked for another team and where he had his first Williams team. Yes, Williams Racing today is the second team founded by him. I called it the Prelude. Hope you enjoy it. So, again, welcome to this new episode of Data Driven Formula One. In focus is Sir Francis Owen Garbutt Williams, and he was a British businessman, racing driver too, and the founder of Williams Formula One. But this will not be today's topic. He was the team principal from its foundation in 1977 until 2020. During that period, the team won 9 Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships. Date of birth, April 16 in 1942 in South Shields, England. Unfortunately, he died some years ago, November 28 in 2021, so Surrey, England, of course, British. And here you see the teams where he have been active for. First, Frank Williams Racing, which then had been changed to Walter Wolf Racing. And then he founded his second team, Williams Grand Prix Racing. One thing, there are not many photos of him available, especially not from his earlier years. In the various episodes, we discussed why we not show more photos, more video footage. The reason is a lot of this content is copyrighted, and we only want to show you ethical sourced images, meaning images where we are sure we have the right to show you. This is the reason why for this episode I used a little bit of AI. So this image you see is not a photo, but I compared it to many images. Well, not many images. I said there are only a few. So I compared it with the few images of Frank Williams in early 1970s. And I can tell you it is quite accurate. So it's very similar to real photos, which of course sparks the discussion of how much AI today has included real photos from copyright real photos where they not asked for the copyright, etc., licenses. An actual discussion, which is interesting, especially if you ask large language models to create this and that photo, how near it is to the real person or to the real Formula One car as it looked in that time. So here we are open, and that's why I'm telling you this is not a real photo. It looks very similar to photos of Frank Williams in that time, but this is AI created. Early life. Again, born on April 16, 1942 in South Shields, which is in the county Durham. Williams' father was an active Royal Air Force officer, and his mother worked as a school teacher. Following the breakdown of his parents' marriage, Williams was partly raised by his aunt and uncle in Jarrow. Consider his later childhood. Williams spent considerable time at St. Joseph's College, a private boarding school in Dumfries, Scotland. However, it was not until the late 1950s when a friend gave him a ride in a Jaguar XK115, similar as you see on that photo, that Williams' passion for fast cars was ignited. So interesting, his father was a Royal Air Force officer, If we see a little bit about his lifestyle, I mean, he must have later founded some kind of company, or he had a more richer, sophisticated family background, because as a normal army or air force officer, I'm sure you couldn't afford a Jaguar or sending your children to a private school. So he came from a quite wealthy background, but of course, uh, with this, the problem that his parents broke away and he have been raised, in fact, by aunt and uncle. 1969, Frank Williams had a passion for motor racing from young age. We saw this. Had a successful career in saloon cars and Formula 3, so more or less a classic way to rise up to Formula One. Maybe not typically saloon cars, but again, we're in the 1960s, so we're a little bit before the time where you normally would start in kart before coming to the junior Formula teams up to Formula 3. So saloon car racing wasn't that unusual for young drivers. He leveraged business acumen as a dealer in racing cars and spares. So also since a young age, he had been experienced in managing. Realized his time as a driver had peaked and nurtured careers of other drivers, notable friend Pierce Courage. And this is something which he has maybe in common with a classic figure like Enzo Ferrari, who also started as a driver, had the passion for driving, but also in young age already learned managing, and also quite young maybe understood that his managing skills had been stronger than his racing skills, understanding that yes, he could participate, but not on the highest level, so unable to compete around championships or even dreaming becoming Formula One champion. So he supported his friend Courage during Formula 2 season, where he won in 68. Then purchased a Brabham Formula 1 car for Courage in 1969, which you see here on the photo. Again, this is a photo. And this causes a little bit controversy with Jack Brabham, also driver and team owner, as Brabham understood that the car would not be used in Formula One, but in the winter break, where we would have the Tasman series in Australia and New Zealand. So here we had a little bit controversy. Nevertheless, it got solved. Maybe they talked together, maybe the lawyers. So Courage could use the car in 1969 outside the Tasman series. Courage achieved impressive feats in the car, including a second place finish at Monaco and as the US Grand Prix. Monaco, you know, an event, a race where the car is a little bit less important than the skills of the drivers. So we can assume that Pierre Courage had been very talented, because the Brabham was not a car normally to compete for victory, or at least not even for second or third places. Next year, 1970, Williams and the team attract attention of Italian sports car manufacturer De Tomaso, which you see here on the photo. If you are interested in De Tomaso and a little bit about De Tomaso's relation to Formula One, we have a separate podcast about this. Just look here in our history. So, De Tomaso commissioned Formula One chassis designed by Gianpaolo Dallara. This was before Dallara founded his company called Dallara, which still exists today, but he worked directly for De Tomaso. Unfortunately, the car proved to be uncompetitive with disappointing finishes in the first four races. even worse, during the fifth race, the Dutch Grand Prix, the De Tomaso 505/38, as you see here on the photo, driven by Courage, flips and bursts into flames, resulting into his tragic death. Frank Williams deeply affected by this because Courage was more than a driver; he was his friend, and that's where he started to put distance between him psychologically and his drivers. Again, something where we see in parallel also happened with Enzo Ferrari. The psychological distance between the team owner and the drivers, because 1970s drivers having fatal accident was still quite common, so it wouldn't be recommended to have a more psychological relation with your drivers, because if not, you suffer and get hurt. The team preserves with Brian Redman and Tim Schenken, but partnership with De Tomaso dissolved to a lack of notable results already after 1 year. And this practically also was the end of De Tomaso in Formula One. 1971. Williams acquires 1-year-old March 701 and hires Henry Pescarolo as a driver in 1971. Quite known driver, also very talented. The team switches to the new March 711 but struggles to achieve good results. You see, both March and especially the 711 or the 711, however you want to call it, always if they are top tens of the most ugliest Formula One cars, this is one candidate. Besides their design, I think Niki Lauda once commented that this was the worst car he ever drove in his Formula One career. So no surprise that also Williams did not achieve any positive results with this March 711. Then Williams' finances depleted following the 1960 victory, leading to a precarious existence from race to race. Pescarolo nevertheless secures a fourth place at the British Grand Prix and a sixth place in Austria, sustaining the team's momentum. Important to have sponsors on board and to finish this season. Then 72, they got a new, bigger sponsor, Italian toy producer Polytoys. So interesting, Polytoys, which produced little Formula One cars, especially in 1 to 43. And now they had been a sponsor for a Formula One car in the size of 1 to 1, a real car. I've looked around a little bit in the internet and I did not found Polytoys Formula One model of the Polytoys Formula One car. So this quite interesting as a fun fact. If you're aware, if there's a Polytoys of the Polytoys Williams, just let me know and you can comment, of course, here under the video. So Polytoys extends supports enabling founding for property chassis production. Len Bailey designs the Polytoys FX3 with conventional features, Cosworth engine, as most of the teams had in the 1970s, and the Hewland FG400 gearbox. The FX3 debuts at the British Grand Prix under Pescarolo's command, but steering issues caused significant damage. Pescarolo switches back to the March, the 721, while the FX3 undergoes reconstruction. Chris Amon pilots the Polytoys FX3 in non-championship races, and here had a championship, had a victory at Brands Hatch. You see here an image. This is the second and the last AI created image for today, because same reason I didn't found a photo where I could secure the rights to show you. But again, this looks quite similar as the car looked in 1972. As you see, quite conservative design, a car which normally should be able to be successful in the midfield. but not a car where you normally would have been able to compete for victories or second or third places. The module and Politoys and the sponsorship of Williams after 1970 season, but interesting new sponsors, Marlboro has started entering Formula One, and they will stay for decades and decades. And ISO Autoveicoli SPA provided the founding for the 1973 season. ISO, famous name from motorsports, and also they produced interesting street cars. I will show you some examples after this. The two new drivers had been Houghton Ganley and the Italian Nanni Galli, and I would assume the last supported by ISO and the first maybe supported by Marlboro. Galli qualifies 16th and Ganley starts back of the grid at the opening race in Argentina. So again, not a highly competitive car. Best results, Ganley finished 7th and Galli finishes 9th in Brazil, improving a little bit the team fortunes. But again, we're not speaking about a team who had been able to compete for the first places. ISO. ISO Revolta is an Italian car and motorbike manufacturer active in the motor vehicle sector since 1938. Over the years, the company has taken various names, including ISO Thermos, ISO Autoveicoli SPA in 1952, ISO Revolta in 1962, ISO Motors in 1973, and now in 2017, the brand has been received new life as ISO Revolta, active in endurance racing, including Le Mans, and also with the plan to produce new luxury sports cars. A tendency which we see since maybe 5 years, more and more, that brands which have been successful in the past have been bought and to start a limited production, mostly on a luxury level. Most famous car, the ISO Gretto from 1969, a car maybe a little bit less known. The original Isetta was also done by ISO. That's why the name Isetta, small ISO, but famous around the planet, I think, became more as BMW or BMW in English got a license and sold it as the BMW Isetta. Same car, just with the BMW badge. Interesting, the Isetta is back on the streets, at least in Europe, as a Swiss company called Microlino uses this design for an electric street car, so an EV, electric vehicle. Practically the original design newly interpreted, and again, since 2023, so since 2 cars, this car is available in various European countries. And I remember I saw it this summer in Paris. So really a beautiful car if you see it in today's traffic. But again, a reinterpretation by the classic Italian design by ISO. But let's come back to Frank Williams and travel back to 1975. Here the team named the chassis FW01, a tradition which continues up to today. So each new Williams race car, starting with the Frank Williams Racing Team and later also done by Williams Racing, it's called FW after Frank Williams, and then the number 01, 02, 03, etc., and so on. In the same year, the team signed a young, talented engineer named Patrick Hedge, who started with Frank Williams Racing and then would later join him at Williams Racing and have been one of the keystones which enabled the company to become more and more successful in the sports. Next year, 1976, the Canadian oil millionaire Walter Wolf. If you're interested in this very interesting character, we have a whole episode about Wolf Racing, highly recommended, speaking about sports, speaking about business, speaking about politics. So look out for that episode. And Walter Wolf purchased 60% of Frank Williams racing cars. The team became then logically Wolf Williams Racing, but Frank Williams was kept as a team manager. Something which in acquisitions often does not go good, having the old owner as the manager, as there are a lot of conflicts programmed, and this also happened here. But let's come back to this. First, so Wolf bought also the assets of the recently withdrawn Heskes team. The team was based in Williams' facility at Reading and used Heskes racing cars and equipment, so not the earlier developed FWs 1 to 3. Also, as we saw, they not really have been competitive. The Heskes 308C, which already existed, was rebranded as the Wolf Williams FB05 and Williams FB04 as the and the existing Williams FW04 as the Wolf Williams FV04. At the end of the season, Wolf restructured the team and removed Frank Williams as a manager. As said, known from business, mostly there are a lot of conflicts having the old owner still on board as a responsible manager. So something which normally you would try to avoid. Maybe having him for a number of months or years as a consultant, but not as a responsible manager. Williams left, Frank Williams left to set up Williams Grand Prix Engineering, and Patrick Head would join Frank in 77. Wolf bought 100% of Wolf Williams Racing, and the team became Walter Wolf Racing. On the short term, quite successful, especially with the South African driver Jody Scheckter. So that's all for today. As I said, this is the prelude before the big Frank Williams story starts with Williams engineering the second team. But I think quite interesting to see how Frank Williams started, because this shaped how he was also later in his second team. And that's why I hope you enjoyed this relatively short episode. If you like it, follow us, especially on YouTube Music, and Spotify, where you have the full video version. If you're only able to listen to us, maybe you're driving yourself to work or any other locations, you find us practically on all podcast catchers. If you're into music, we have an interesting playlist on Spotify, Data Driven F1 Mixtape. Here you find various songs inspired by Formula One, and some also inspired directly by certain drivers. So give it a try. Thank you. Until the next time.